How's it going, folks? Let me check. On the old stereo, man. The radio. Someone Still Loves You, yeah. Freddie Mercury was a good mover, wasn't he? He was a good mover. Yeah, I just want to give a little bit of context to a couple of little demonstrations that went up. It's kind of like gospel music, you know. If you're putting gospel in what you're doing, occasionally you get a phone in your face in order to, get right up there like a person. You gotta pay the price, you know. You don't just hand out a set of wings and say, yeah, go, what are you, a novice? Yeah, go and get up there, son. This is your first lesson, you know. So anyway, the only thing I went to see was the first one went up. It was about guessing at styles. It wasn't quite correct the whole way through. The first little bit of it, what I was just trying to demonstrate was that it's funny how many guys that are like 40, 30, even 25, guys with big mouths sometimes, they don't know how to throw a punch at all. They don't know how to throw a punch. And they're quite stiff and stuff like that. I knew from quite early on. I had a good stepdad, he had a punch bag and he taught me how to throw a punch if I was getting bullied. And it was at that age when all you did was kick and headlocks and things like this, And there was a guy that did a bit of jiu-jitsu, was giving me trouble, and he grabbed me to the throat one day. I grabbed him back, and started punching him in the face with this technique, boxing technique. And the guy ran off and cried, and it was a great victory. It was a great victory that day. A lot of the sort of harder guys didn't want to acknowledge it. They were saying, you're lucky he didn't come back. Because if he had it, you know what I mean? Because you learn this, they don't want the guys with pretty faces and quiet boys to prevail and want to fight and maybe start to get a sway of power. Sometimes, there'll be some conniving stuff that goes on, and so you have to be careful. You have to step carefully. And I mean, hopefully you get to a certain age outside of the ring, you wouldn't be punching anybody in the face, But of course you do need to be able to look after yourself as well, because you never know what might happen. Look a bit like this here with all of this, artificial light. So that's why at the beginning of the video it's like a rock'em sock'em robot, because it tends to be a stiff thing, and it came off. I was throwing a really stiff step and jab, which is something I used to always do before. They were good shots, like I could throw a punch, but I didn't realize the guys throwing a jab were throwing it lightly, and that's how they were getting that thing, flick jabs and what have you, like Larry Holmes and stuff like that, And even a double jab, realizing that it's not bring it all the way back. It's like, no, you flick and bring it back a little bit, and then get your second flick, Because I was wondering how, trying to do 3 or 4 complete jabs, you know what I mean? But and there's a little demonstration of it. It's kind of silly little backhand of the body, come around like this. And it's a guy that I was sharing a house with for a short time. He's from the New Lodge here in Belfast. Very, very capable, violent young man. Good lad, but he wouldn't want to get in the wrong side. He couldn't throw a jab to save his life, but I couldn't tell him that. Because when I started to try to tell him and teach him, he didn't want that. But he threw that shot beautifully. And he would just do it occasionally, you know what I mean? But we were sort of out in the football pitch or whatever, the old gravel pitch. If you get that in the States or wherever, But yeah. So that was that, and then I realized, come to mind, so light bulb moment, Conor Benn. And it's like, well, you just talked about Conor Benn in a little boxing video. What do you know about his style? I was like, Jesus, let me have a go here, And I thought of my uncle Vincent, who passed a few years ago. He was a boxer, He was a proper fighting man, he was a hard guy, but we were very close and spent a lot of time together, and he would tell me stories and try to teach me things and stuff like this here. It's like those lessons that many years after you heard them, it occurred to you and you go, oh, that's what he was trying to get across at that time, you know. So I thought of my uncle and what will he do? And you know, immediately I connected with him. You know, he's probably getting his hole roasted. You know, down below. But I thought of him in heaven, and he kind of slapped me around the head. Says, "What would you know?" You know what I mean? So he would have been into Chris Eubank and Nigel Penn and all of like baddies. So I found what followed upon sort of review was not a bad wee rendition of what Conor Penn does, you know. And then I did realise, yeah, no, there's his dad in him too. It's how that's how his dad put as well, you know what I mean? So I guess there was that connection, and I tried to do a little bit of Bernard Hopkins, you know, because despite the trouble that he gave Joe Kawasaki, I've come to be a very big appreciator of his style and stuff. I like the way he talks too. He talks a lot like Bernard, you know, but so do I. So you know, and he talks good stuff. And he talks good stuff. And, you know, he had to come up the hard way. He went to jail and all that stuff as well. Like you know, but he come out and look what he done afterwards. You know what I mean? So I remember he'd been on Rummy's Corner. Floyd had been on a couple other guys. I always thought to myself, it's great the amount of respect these great fighters are showing to Rummy here, like, because he's, you know what I mean, he was just holding the path. He might have thrown a couple of little jabs or whatever, you know, but funny little guy, like, you know, good boxing guy, like I do like Rummy, but these guys were demonstrating a lot of stuff. Floyd was very good. He managed to get a lot out of Floyd, I thought, and then he managed with Bernard. I remember Bernard sort of explaining then his stance, you know, and the head's like a Roman centurion or something. This is the head. He says, you're going to break your hands on my skull. So that's what that's there for. You know, there's this, wherever he had his hand, I didn't quite remember, and say up here or something, and I had the lead hand much too low. I was fully shelving doing that job. I've yet to figure that out. Probably never will. Would have liked to have further demonstrated how he would throw a hook and step around and come out again, but I didn't quite have the room. And to be honest, it's another thing that they haven't just picked up on yet. And I hope to at some point, because he's such a clever fighter. I loved his performance against Tito Trinidad. I thought that was magical. And that was the one where I kind of was like, yes, subscribed, you know. Who else was there? Just a little bit of Ryan Garcia, the best that I could do, you know, just a sort of fast, flashy jab. My jab's probably about half as fast as what he throws his, power and everything else, you know, his footwork is, you know, his right hand. I mean, I tried to throw the 1-2. Looking back at it, I thought, yeah, that right hand wasn't coming. It could have induced much more devastation had it been thrown from just a little bit back, so it's a preparatory thing before you even get to position yourself and everything, which I guess you're going to talk about playing chess and stuff, it's you know, but so it'll be interesting to see what way that all plays out. And then I did a couple of wee shorts there. There might be a couple more to come this evening, we'll have to see. So the first one, what was it? Yeah, I remember this guy, Lee Wiley. I think he works with Ben Davison now. He's like a really great boxing mind. He used to do some videos and stuff and breakdowns, I think kind of worldwide. Do you know what I mean? It was like, his knowledge was very, 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 very good. Like he really knew what he was talking about. And he made quite cool videos and stuff. There's a few guys that Hans or something like that, did some great ones. But Wiley, I remember him doing one about like Floyd Mayweather and jazz, and he was showing how he would like set one time, you know, it's Floyd. He probably went into 2 or 3 different time signatures, you know, playing bebop or some shit, you know what I mean, and then just threw a punch completely unexpected, you know, according to what had already been set, you know what I mean, and it's like hypnotizing the guy almost into it, you know what I mean, and I'm not sure if I quite accomplished that, but that's what I was getting at. next one I thought, well, what's that other thing about Floyd? I always noticed, I'm sure other people have, but it rarely gets spoken about. It's just, I would have called it a leaping left hook. I don't know if that's quite appropriate, but Jersey Joe Walcott is sort of famed for that shot, isn't he? I've read more about it than I have actually seen footage, so probably better go and have a wee look at that. Do the old due diligence, once again. But, and I read some that he fought, like I don't know how many fights he fought, and people were saying, you should be out of there, you shouldn't be doing this. And at the end of it all, he was like, you know what I mean? Those people don't know what they're talking about, sort of thing. But I think what Floyd threw it from such a solid base when he was in the fully shell, with the center of gravity is quite low set, and he's shifting short steps, nearly like the McCallum thing, downstairs, upstairs. Of course, he's fully rotational, with all of his moves are there, and because he has it so programmed, of course he has so much time to think then, and he can improvise on the top of that and do whatever else he likes, because the mobility, he can switch from that, absolutely solid base into mobility, and like Shakur Stevenson suddenly frolic around. Do you know what I mean? But that little leaping left hook thing that he does, it's such a compact shot and so unpredictable coming from, like I say, that solid base. And it's not a feather-like touch, and he catches you behind the ear. It's always been one of my favourite shots, and one that's been overlooked, but maybe it hasn't been overlooked. There's people just for some reason are caught up with what he said that week in an interview or something stupid like that, but I watched the early interviews with Floyd Mayweather, so I know exactly just how smart he is, you know what I mean, and he's got to be super clever on top of it, not to give